What should the state do to bring down housing costs? There is a continued trend of rising real estate prices around the world. According to a Fortune magazine article from March 2016, the last year has seen an 11.2% increase in median home prices in San Francisco, and New York saw an increase of 8.6%. London suffered an even higher rise, reaching 13.5% on average over the past year. In contrast, the wage rise in London was only 1.6%. Despite the rise in income, the gap between housing prices and the purchasing power of the people is growing. For a broader perspective, note that household income has risen sharply over the last 100 years. However, expenditure on housing has risen significantly more than revenue. According to the US Bureau of Labor, in 1901, the percentage of expenditure on housing and household spending was 23%. In contrast, in 2003, the housing expenditures rose to 33% of total spending. The main reasons that the amount that the average family pays for housing has increased is regulation of construction. In other words, the more regulations on construction there are, housing costs can be as high as and even surpass 33% of the household income. If we take into account the data presented below, we may conclude that regulation is possibly the sole factor responsible for 90% of the price tag on the homes in San Francisco. To understand this example, it's important to know that in Houston, Texas, regulation of construction is minimal. There are no zoning laws designed to limit the construction options of landowners. In his book Economic Facts and Fallacies, Thomas Sowell notes that an analysis performed in 2005, a nationwide real estate firm estimated that a typical middle-class home on a quarter-acre lot that cost $152,000 in Houston would cost more than $300,000 in Portland, Oregon, $900,000 in Long Beach, California, and more than $1 million in San Francisco. Regulation impacts pricing, but population growth doesn't, as can be seen in the case of Las Vegas. The population of Las Vegas almost tripled between 1980 and 2000, but the real median house pricing did not change. The income of the residents also does not affect the rise in housing prices. In Houston during the late 1970s, average income surged well ahead of the rest of the US, but nevertheless, Houston remained one of the 15 least expensive housing markets of the 319 US regions examined by Coldwell Banker. It's surprising, but even the cost of construction doesn't cause housing prices to rise. In Palo Alto, California, where home prices nearly quadrupled during the decade of the 1970s, there was not a single new home built during that decade. So this was simply a question of the same existing homes selling for far more than before. Of course, the regulation on housing is not the only parameter responsible for the rise in housing prices. Since the mid-1990s, the American Central Bank adopted a policy of lowered interest rates to encourage growth. Low interest facilitates the taking of loans, which increases the supply of money. In addition, the increase in the supply of money is also the result of fractional reserve loans, which are loans given using money that the bank is not required to actually hold at the time of the loan authorization. In April 1995, the money supply of the United States was $3.5 trillion, compared to $9 trillion in mid-2011, and a little over $12.6 trillion leading up to April 2016. The larger the supply of money, the smaller the purchasing power of that money is, and it is therefore more profitable to invest it in real estate. Real estate, like shares, increases in value because the public invests in real estate in order to not lose the value of the money they saved. This is the reason why, despite the 2008 subprime crisis in the United States, the median housing price jumped 15% over the record prices set in May 2007. From $260,000 to $300,000 in mid-2016. The trend is not exclusive to the United States. It is noted throughout the world, including in countries that did not undergo a subprime crisis. So what can the state do to lower the price of housing? Zoning laws that limit the possibilities for land use should be limited. As demonstrated in the case of Houston, the absence of such laws contributes to lower real estate prices. Abolition of laws that limit the amount of floors in residential buildings can also help. Personally, I can say that I am in favor of the state not interfering in what its citizens build on their own private land. The determination of interest rates by the state should be prevented. This by a return to an economy built on money whose value is linked to the value of gold. In such a situation, the government will not be able to increase housing prices by lowering interest rates, and as a result, investing in housing to profit from high housing prices won't pay off. Of course, the process of encouraging growth will also have fewer positive effects, financial bubbles, and other implications which I will discuss in my next videos. Interesting stuff? Sign up for our newsletter and get more original content.